I have to admit, when I saw the topic for today's deep dive, my guard went up immediately. Persuasion. It just has a branding problem, doesn't it? I mean, if I say I'm going to teach you how to persuade people, where does your mind go?
Oh, straight to a guy in a loud plaid suit.
Right. Trying to sell you a car with a, leaking transmission.
Or maybe a politician who's answering a question that nobody actually asked. It's got a lot of baggage.
Exactly. We tend to equate persuasion with manipulation. It feels like a zero-sum game where, if I persuade you, I win and you lose.
Right.
It feels gross. Like I'm tricking you into doing something at your expense.
That is the default setting for most of us. We see any kind of negotiation or persuasion as a battle of wills. But today, we are unpacking a stack of notes on a book that basically claims that definition is completely backward.
Okay.
We're looking at The Art of Persuasion, Winning Without Intimidation by Bob Burg.
The go-giver guy.
The very same. You might know him from that massive bestseller, but this work is really focused on the mechanics of getting to yes without, being a jerk about it.
And the mission of this deep dive, then, is to reframe what winning even means. Because Burg's argument is that true persuasion isn't about overcoming resistance with force.
Not at all. It's about aligning your goals with the other person's emotional needs.
So if you do it correctly.
Right. If you do it correctly, you get what you want, but the other person actually feels good about giving it to you. They walk away feeling respected, not defeated.
Which sounds great in theory, but, when you're dealing with a stubborn bureaucrat or an angry customer, that feels like a very heavy lift.
It is a heavy lift, but Burg grounds this in a really interesting definition from the Talmud. He quotes a sage, Simeon ben Zoma, who asked a question that I think we should all ask ourselves.
Okay.
Who is a mighty person? And the answer wasn't the guy with the army or the most money. The answer was one who can control his emotions and make of an enemy a friend.
Make of an enemy a friend. That is a high bar. Usually I just want the enemy to get out of my way.
That's the temptation, right? But if you just shove them out of the way, they're still an enemy. They're just an enemy who's now behind you, waiting to trip you up later.
Good point.
If you make them a friend, you've actually solved the problem.
So the roadmap for this discussion is pretty tactical. We aren't just talking philosophy.
Okay, good.
We're going to look at the psychology of why people say yes, specifically that gap between logic and emotion. We'll break down responding versus reacting, which is critical. And we have a specific set of 8 magic words that Burg claims can disarm almost anyone.
I definitely want to get to those words. I love a good magic trick. But we have to start with the hardware, the brain.
Right.
There's this premise in the book that feels a bit insulting at first glance. Burg says that people, all of us, really are not logical creatures. We like to think we are, data-driven, rational, but he argues we are almost entirely emotional. It's a hard pill to swallow, especially for professionals. I mean, we live in spreadsheets and data. We think we weigh the pros and cons.
Right.
But Burg's core principle is that human beings buy or decide or agree based on emotion. Logic only comes into play after the decision is made.
So logic is just the cleanup crew.
Precisely. Logic is the tool we use to justify what our emotions have already decided. Burg breaks it down into 2 primary drives.
Okay.
We take action either to gain pleasure or to avoid pain. And in a social context, pain usually means embarrassment, loss of status, feeling ignored. We make the decision to avoid that pain instantly, and then we use our intellect to backfill the decision with reasons.
This is what he calls rational lies.
Exactly, spelled L-I-E-S. Because it sounds like rationalize.
Yeah.
We tell ourselves these little lies to make an emotional urge sound reasonable.
There's a story in the notes about a steak dinner that I think everyone can relate to. It's almost painful how accurate it is.
Ah, the broken hungry story.
Yes.
So, Burg is young, he's struggling, and he has absolutely no business spending money on fine dining. He's walking down the street, hungry, and he passes a high-end steakhouse.
And his bank account, the logic is saying, keep walking.
Keep walking. Go home, make a sandwich. You cannot afford this.
But the smell hits him. The atmosphere looks warm. The emotion kicks in.
The desire for pleasure just overrides the logic. But he can't just say, I'm being irresponsible. He has to rationalize it. So the brain starts manufacturing these rational lies.
Law number 1.
First, he tells himself, I'm not going to eat. I'm just going to go in and look at the menu.
Which is always a lie. You never just look at the menu.
Never. So then, once he's seated, rationalization number 2 kicks in. I need to be in this environment to visualize my future success. This isn't dinner. This is an investment in my mindset.
Oh, that's a good one. I've definitely used networking or mindset to justify a nice meal.
And then the closer, the final nail in the coffin. I need the protein. This steak will help me work harder tomorrow. He buys the steak. He satisfied an emotional craving, but he used 3 distinct logical arguments to give himself permission.
So the takeaway for persuasion here is, if you come at someone with just facts, just the logic, you're speaking a language their decision-making brain isn't even listening to yet.
Exactly. If you try to persuade a client with a spreadsheet showing 10% efficiency gains, but you haven't addressed their fear of looking bad to their boss if the implementation fails, you lose. You have to hit the emotional driver first. Logic is just the ammunition you give them to explain their yes to other people later.
But to do that, to read someone else's emotions, you have to have a pretty tight handle on your own.
You really do.
Which leads to this distinction Burg makes between responding and reacting. I feel like in the heat of the moment, say in an argument, 90% of us are just reacting.
It's biological. When we feel attacked, we react. It's fight or flight. Burg borrows a great analogy from Zig Ziglar here about medication.
Okay.
If you go to the doctor, he gives you a pill, and you come back the next day with hives and you can't breathe, the doctor says, your body is having a reaction.
Reaction equals bad. The system is rejecting it.
It means the system is out of control. It's negative. But if you take the pill and you get better, the doctor says, your body is responding to the treatment. Responding is positive. It's controlled.
So in communication, a reaction is that knee-jerk defense. Right. Someone insults you, you insult them back. Someone yells, you yell louder.
You're letting the other person control your behavior.
Right.
Exactly. If they push, you push back. You're a puppet. A response is taking a breath, processing the input, and choosing a reply that actually moves you toward your goal. It requires a gap between the stimulus and the action. And Burg offers this toolkit to help create that gap. He calls it the 3 Ps: politeness, patience, and persistence.
These sound like virtues my grandmother taught me, not negotiation tactics. It sounds a bit soft.
They sound soft, but they're actually weapons of de-escalation. There's a case study in the book about the Toronto Convention that illustrates this perfectly. It's a classic computer says no, bureaucratic nightmare.
Set the scene for us, because I think we've all been in this room.
So Burg arrives at a convention where he's speaking. He checks his book table, and it's in a terrible spot.
Hidden behind a pillar or something.
Yeah, no foot traffic. He needs to move it to make any sales. But the guy in charge, let's call him Mr. Anderson, is one of those people who loves his clipboard a little too much.
The person who derives all their self-worth from enforcing the rules. I know that guy.
Mr. Anderson shuts him down immediately. He says moving the table is non-negotiable because the crowds would block an exit. Now, the reaction here, what most of us would do is argue the facts. No, they won't. I paid for this spot.
Do you know who I am?
Right, and that would have turned it into a contest of wills. Mr. Anderson would have to dig in to protect his authority.
Exactly. If he changes his mind after you yell at him, he looks weak, he loses face.
So Burg pivots. He uses the 3 Ps. He looks at the guy and says, I understand. And you are absolutely right to be concerned about the safety of the guests. That should be the top priority.
He validates the objection. He aligns with the bureaucrat.
He removes the conflict. They are now on the same side. Team safety. Then he drops the pivot. He asks, given your expertise in managing these crowds, how would you solve this problem?
That's savvy. He's asking the guy to be the consultant, not the gatekeeper.
He's playing to the guy's ego. So Mr. Anderson thinks for a second and says, well, if you keep the table covered until the keynote starts, the crowd won't gather yet. You can move it there.
A solution that Burg would have happily suggested himself, but it had to come from Anderson.
Right. Because it was Anderson's idea, Anderson felt good about granting it. It was a win-win. Burg got the table, Anderson got to be the benevolent expert.
This really highlights the importance of how we phrase things. The book talks a lot about I messages versus you messages. This feels like marriage counseling 101, but how does it work in business?
Oh, it applies everywhere. Think about the power dynamic of a you message. You are being rude. You messed up this order.
It's an accusation. The other person immediately has to defend themselves.
Their brain goes into fight mode, but an I message is unassailable because it's about your experience. I feel upset when this happens. I'm confused by this bill.
I feel like I'm not being understood. You can't really argue with someone's feelings. If I say, I'm confused, you can't say, no, you're not.
Exactly. It disarms the defense mechanisms.
Yeah.
You are making yourself vulnerable, which paradoxically gives you the power. This idea of surrendering power to gain control brings us to the 8 magic words.
I've been waiting for this. The setup is the lost luggage story, right?
This is a masterclass in psychology. A friend of Berg's loses her luggage. The airline agent is doing the standard robotic apology. I'm sorry, policy says we can't deliver it until tomorrow morning.
And the friend needs the bag tonight.
Right, for a presentation. Now, the you approach would be, you need to get me that bag. This is unacceptable.
Which gets you labeled as a problem customer instantly.
Yeah.
The agent probably slows down just to spite you.
Instead, the friend listens. She agrees. She says, I know you have rules to follow, and I respect that you're doing your job. She makes the agent feel safe. She validates her authority. And then she says the magic words.
Okay.
If you can't do it, I'll definitely understand.
If you can't do it, I'll definitely understand. That sounds like giving up. It sounds like you're walking away.
It sounds like surrender, but look at the psychology. By saying, if you can't do it, you are subtly challenging their capability. You're implying, maybe you don't have the power to help me.
Ooh.
Maybe you're just a low-level cog in the machine who can't override the system.
Oh, I see. So the agent's ego hears that and goes, wait a minute, I can do it. I have the power.
Exactly. Human beings want to be capable. They want to be the hero, but they only want to be the hero for someone who appreciates them.
So what's the second part?
Usually you follow it with, if you could, I'd certainly appreciate it. In the story, the luggage arrived at 3 a.m. The agent went way above and beyond, likely breaking protocol, because she wanted to prove she could do it for the nice lady who understood her constraints.
That is effective. If you can't do it, I'll definitely understand. It completely removes the pressure, which makes them feel safe enough to take a risk for you.
It's basically conversational judo. You stop pushing, so they stop pulling.
Let's apply this to something a bit higher stakes. The book has a section on handling police officers, the traffic ticket strategy. Now, I'm nervous just seeing blue lights in the rearview mirror. My instinct is to panic and start thinking of excuses.
Which is what the officer expects. They expect panic, excuses, or aggression. Burg says your goal is to disrupt that pattern. Step 1 is physical. Turn on the interior light immediately if it's dark. Hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel. Do not move.
Make the officer feel safe. That makes sense.
Step 2 is verbal surrender. The officer walks up and asks the standard question. Do you know why I pulled you over? The standard response is, I was flowing with traffic.
Or playing dumb, no idea, officer.
Which insults their intelligence. They know you were speeding. So Burg says, admit fault immediately and totally. Officer, I have no excuse. I was definitely speeding. I wasn't paying attention.
You confess, just like that.
Immediately. Think about the officer's day. They have listened to people lie to them for 8 hours straight. Suddenly, here is someone telling the absolute truth. It's disarming. It builds immediate respect because you aren't treating them like they're stupid.
So you've established you aren't a threat and you aren't a liar. What's next?
Then you asked for the warning, but you use the magic words. Officer, I know I was wrong. If you can't let me off with a warning, I'll definitely understand.
You're telling the person with the gun and the badge, I respect your authority to punish me.
And by doing that, you remove their need to punish you. Often a ticket is about teaching someone a lesson. If you've already admitted the mistake and respected their authority, the lesson is learned. It doesn't work 100% of the time. If you're doing 90 in a school zone, you're going to jail. But for standard infractions, it drastically shifts the odds in your favor.
It seems the common thread here is ego preservation. You are constantly protecting the other person's self-image.
That's the core of it. We are all walking around protecting our egos. And this applies to when you need to correct someone, too. Burg suggests the feel, felt, found method.
This is old school sales training, but how does it work in normal conversation?
Let's say you're a manager implementing a new policy that everyone hates. An employee complains. Instead of arguing, you say, I understand how you feel. That's validation.
Okay.
Many other employees have felt the same way. That's normalization. You're not crazy. But what they found was that after 2 weeks, this actually cut their workload in half.
You guide them to the new conclusion without invalidating their current emotion.
Right. And if you need to critique someone directly, tell them they messed up. Burg suggests the third-party explanation. Never attack them directly. Tell a story about a third party, or even better, yourself making the same mistake.
So if an employee is disorganized, I don't say, "You're messy, clean it up."
No. You say, when I first started this job, my desk was a disaster zone. I lost files constantly. But a mentor showed me that taking 5 minutes at the end of the day to clear the decks made me 20% more productive. It really saved my career.
You're correcting them, but you're making yourself the dummy in the story.
It removes the shame. They get the message, clean your desk. But they don't feel like tack. They feel like you're sharing a secret to success.
This moves us from transactional moments tickets, luggage, to the long game, relationships. There's a distinction in the notes between the golden rule and the platinum rule.
We all know the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated. It's a good start, but it's flawed. It assumes everyone is like you.
Right. If I like blunt, direct feedback, I assume you want blunt, direct feedback. But if you're sensitive, that might crush you.
Exactly. The platinum rule is treat others how they want to be treated. It requires you to step outside your own preferences and read the other person. Do they need reassurance? Do they need data? Real persuasion is adapting your style to fit their needs.
And one of the best ways to build that relational equity, as Burg puts it, is something he calls edification.
Edification just means building people up, but specifically speaking well of people when they aren't there. There's a great story about Berg's father. They had carpet layers working in the house, rough guys, taking a break, complaining about their wives spending all their money, and they tried to rope Berg's dad into the complaint fest.
The old men bonding over misery ritual.
Right, but Berg's dad didn't bite. He didn't lecture them either. He just said, my wife is my best friend. I love it when she buys things because she has such great taste.
That must have silenced the room.
It confused them with positivity. He maintained his integrity without attacking theirs. And you know that eventually people hear what you say about them behind their back. If you are the person who always speaks highly of others, people trust you.
Speaking of things that build trust, we have to touch on handwritten notes. In the age of email and text, this feels archaic. But Burg is obsessed with the specifics. Blue ink, number 10 envelope, real stamp.
It's about signaling value. A meter stamp looks like a bill. Black ink looks like a mass mailing. A real stamp and blue ink signal that a human being took 3 minutes of their life to sit down and write to you personally.
It cuts through the noise. I get 200 emails a day, but I get maybe one real letter a month.
He tells a story about a grumpy man at a convention who actually scolded Burg for talking too loud in the hallway.
Oh, wow.
Most people would have written that guy off as a jerk. Burg went back to his room and wrote him a thank you note. Great meeting you. Hope you enjoy the conference.
He thanked the guy who yelled at him?
He killed him with kindness. The next year, that man sought Burg out and greeted him like an old friend. The note had completely rewritten the narrative in the guy's head.
It's hard to stay mad at someone who sends you a thank you card.
It just neutralizes the hostility.
We're running close on time, but we can't do an episode on persuasion without looking at the historical master of this, Abraham Lincoln.
The ultimate case study. Lincoln filled his cabinet with rivals who thought they were smarter than him. He turned them all into allies. And he had a very specific mechanism for handling his own anger.
The unsent letter. I love this technique.
It's vital. If a general failed him, and they failed him often, he would write a furious, venomous letter. He would pour all that toxicity onto the page, and then
You never send it.
he would fold it up, put it in a drawer, and never send it. He processed the emotion so he wouldn't react.
He got the poison out.
Exactly. Then, once he was calm, he would write the response. There's a famous letter to General Joseph Hooker. Hooker was arrogant, loose-lipped, and had suggested the country needed a dictator to win the war.
Which is a dangerous thing for a general to say to a sitting president.
Lincoln's letter is a masterpiece of the sandwich technique. He starts by praising Hooker's bravery and military skill. He builds him up.
And then the critique.
Then he pivots. He writes essentially, I heard you said we need a dictator, but only successful generals can set up dictatorships. Go win the war, and I will risk the dictatorship.
Win first, then we'll talk. That is such a power move, but so polite.
And he ended with, go forward and give us victories. He validated Hooker's talent, corrected his attitude, and empowered him to do the job. He didn't crush him, he directed him. That is the essence of winning without intimidation.
So if we pull this all together, persuasion isn't some magic trick. It's emotional intelligence. It's realizing that logic is secondary to how people feel.
It's about understanding that every person you meet is walking around with a giant invisible sign around their neck that says, make me feel important. If you can fill that need, if you can give them that respect, they will clear the path for you.
You give them what they need emotionally, they give you what you need logically.
That's the trade.
I want to leave the listener with one final thought to chew on. We talked about surrendering to win. Using that line, if you can't do it, I understand. Think about the concept of the implied threat versus the overt threat.
That's a powerful place to end.
When you scream and yell, do this or else, that's an overt threat. You've played your hand, you've shown you are rattled. But when you stay calm, polite, and stand your ground while letting the other person save face, that implies a level of confidence and power that is actually much more intimidating.
In a good way. It shows you don't need to shout to get what you want. That is true authority.
So, your mission for the week. Try the 8 magic words. Find a situation where someone says no, maybe a customer service rep, a coworker, and sincerely say, if you can't do it, I'll definitely understand. See if they don't suddenly find a way to make it happen. Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you next time.